It started as a quiet night in a small American town. But what police discovered inside the Caldwell house would haunt investigators for decades. Strange symbols on the walls, a vanished family, and a single tape that recorded the final screams. Tonight, we uncover the forgotten truth behind one of the most chilling, unsolved murders in American history. The haunting mystery of the Caldwell house. In the quiet rural town of Silver Creek, Oregon, nothing ever really happened. The town was surrounded by dense pine forests, a single gas station, and a church that rang its bells every Sunday at 9 sharp. Life was simple, predictable, until the night of October 14, 1976. That night, Silver Creek lost its silence. At 2:47 a.m., a call came into the local sheriff's office. The voice on the line was trembling, panicked. It was Mary Thompson, a young nurse who lived alone on the edge of town. She reported seeing lights in her backyard and hearing what she described as a child crying in the woods. The dispatcher told her to stay inside, lock the doors, and wait for deputies. When officers arrived 20 minutes later, the house was dark. The front door was open. Inside, they found signs of a struggle, a broken lamp, overturned furniture, and a small trail of blood leading to the back door. But Mary Thompson was gone. The only clue left behind was a tape recorder on the kitchen counter, still running. On the tape, a woman's voice whispered, "Please, not again," followed by a single sharp sound, like something metal dragging across the floor. From that night forward, Silver Creek would never be the same. Sheriff Daniel Harlow had served in Silver Creek for over 20 years, but nothing in his career had prepared him for what he saw that night. The moment he stepped into Mary Thompson's house, a chill ran down his spine. There was something unnatural about the silence. Not just the absence of sound, but the feeling that the air itself was holding its breath. The crime scene looked staged, yet chaotic. The blood on the floor had already dried, suggesting at least an hour had passed since the incident. A single coffee mug lay shattered beside the sofa, and the television was still on, frozen on static, as if the broadcast had ended mid-sentence. In the kitchen, the recorder was the key. Sheriff Harlow played the tape again and again, hoping to catch some detail of a voice, a sound, a clue. The last thing heard was the faint hum of electricity, followed by a distant whisper that none of the officers could identify. They sent the tape to the Portland State Forensics Lab, marking it as evidence number 001. Outside, Harlow noticed tire tracks in the wet soil, wide and deep, like those of an old pickup truck. But when they followed the trail, it ended abruptly in the forest, as if the vehicle had simply vanished. 2 days later, the police began a full search of the nearby woods. Over 50 volunteers joined in, combing through the thick forest with flashlights and dogs. For 3 days, they found nothing. No body, no belongings, no trace of Mary Thompson. But on the 4th day, something strange happened. Deputy Elliot Ward, who had been assigned to organize evidence, discovered that several reports related to the case had disappeared overnight. The recording log was missing, and so were the crime scene photos. At first, they suspected human error, but soon they realized something more deliberate. The files had not been misplaced, they had been removed. When Harlow questioned his team, everyone denied touching the evidence. Then, the sheriff received an anonymous call from a payphone near the town diner. A distorted male voice whispered, "Stop digging. She's where she wanted to be." The line went dead. From that day, the case began to feel cursed. Officers complained of strange dreams, of whispers echoing in their patrol radios at night. Some claimed to see a woman standing in the trees when they drove past Mary's house. None dared to stop. A week later, the forensic lab in Portland contacted Sheriff Harlow with a report. The analysts claimed the recording was corrupted. Nearly half the tape had been wiped clean. Yet during the restoration process, they discovered fragments of background noise that didn't match any known source. Low-frequency tones resembling heartbeats, and an intermittent whisper repeating a name. Daniel. That was Harlow's name. Disturbed, the sheriff asked the lab to stop the analysis immediately. But the next day, the lab reported a break-in. The storage room containing the tape was destroyed, the equipment smashed, and the analyst, a man named Dr. Harris, had vanished without a trace. His car was still in the parking lot. When Harlow arrived, he found something written on the broken glass window in what looked like red ink. "You heard it too." No one ever found Dr. Harris again. As weeks passed, Silver Creek tried to return to normal, but fear lingered in the air like fog. Then on November 2nd, a hunter named George Milton came into the sheriff's office carrying a torn piece of fabric. He claimed he'd found it near an abandoned cabin 10 miles north of town, and he swore it belonged to Mary Thompson. The cabin was known among locals as the Red House, a hunting shack built in the 1930s and left to decay. When the officers arrived, they found the door hanging off its hinges, the inside coated in thick dust. Yet in the center of the room stood a chair, perfectly clean, as if waiting for someone. On the walls, faint handprints, small and childlike, covered the wood. And on the floor, etched into the dirt, were words written shakily, "She never left." In the corner, they found an old metal tape recorder. It was the same brand as Mary's. When they pressed play, it emitted only static, until a woman's voice whispered, barely audible, "Help! He's still here." Sheriff Harlow ordered the entire area around the cabin to be sealed off. No one was allowed to enter without clearance, but rumors spread fast in Silver Creek. Everyone wanted to see the cursed house where Mary Thompson was last heard. By the next morning, crowds gathered at the forest's edge, whispering prayers and stories about the place. Inside, the forensics team worked for hours. The dust on the floor was centuries thick, yet the chair remained spotless, as though someone had cleaned it that very morning. A faint smell of iron filled the air. Not blood, but something colder, metallic, unsettling. One of the officers, a young recruit named Mason Doyle, claimed to hear faint breathing near the walls. He swore the sound came from behind the wooden panels, though there was no cavity behind them. When he pressed his ear closer, he fainted instantly. Later at the hospital, Mason described what he saw before blacking out. A woman's reflection in the wall, watching me with her eyes wide open, but there was no mirror. That night, Sheriff Harlow ordered the site to be closed indefinitely, but the cabin didn't stay quiet. Locals began reporting strange red lights flickering between the trees after midnight, always coming from the direction of the Red House. As the case grew colder, Harlow turned to the town's historical archives for any clue about the cabin's origins. He found that the property once belonged to the Walden family, settlers from the late 1800s who mysteriously vanished one winter. The only remaining document was a coroner's note from 1892, describing an unnatural silence in the woods and the discovery of 13 identical coffins. Each coffin, according to the record, contained the body of a young woman, all around the same age, 25. None of them were identified. The report ended abruptly with the words, "The last one was still warm." When Harlow shared this with the police department, some officers refused to continue the case. The parallels between the old Walden disappearances and Mary Thompson's case were undeniable. Both involved isolated locations, missing evidence, and inexplicable voices recorded on analog devices. The sheriff began to wonder if the Red House was built over something older, a burial site, or perhaps something worse. That night he took the old coroner's note home, but when he woke up the next morning, it was gone. In its place was a blank sheet of paper with fresh handwriting that simply said, "You're reading the wrong file." By December 1974, the case had taken a dark toll on the department. 2 officers resigned abruptly, claiming the investigation was haunted. Another, Deputy Ward, the same man who first noticed the missing files, disappeared while off duty. His car was found abandoned near the old railway bridge, engine still running, headlights pointed toward the forest. Inside the car, his radio was on, transmitting only static, except for one repeating phrase recorded by dispatch. "Ward, come back inside." But the voice wasn't from the dispatcher. 3 days later, a fisherman found Ward's badge floating in the creek, bent and burned as if exposed to extreme heat. Yet the water was ice cold. After that, fear gripped the entire town. People started locking their doors before sunset. Some even moved away. And in the following weeks, A local reporter who tried to document the story, Linda Harrow, was found unconscious in her home, her tape recorder playing a loop of her own terrified breathing. When she woke up, she couldn't remember what happened, only that she heard someone whispering inside her head. One night, while reviewing the case timeline, Harlow noticed a disturbing pattern. Every major event, the murder, the break-in, the disappearances, had occurred between 3:15 and 3:30 a.m. He checked the lab reports, radio logs, and even the testimonies. All confirmed the same window of time. Determined to uncover the truth, Harlow decided to stake out the Red House during that exact hour. He went alone, armed with a flashlight, his revolver, and Mary's restored tape, which he carried like a curse. The forest was dead quiet. Even the wind had stopped. At 3:17 a.m., his flashlight began flickering. Then, without warning, the tape recorder in his hand turned on by itself. From it came the faint hum again, the same low tone from before, followed by breathing, not his own. Then, a woman's voice, clear as day, whispered, "It's your turn, Daniel." Moments later, his radio blared with static, and every compass in his car spun violently in circles. He fled, stumbling back toward town, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was following just behind him, staying hidden in the dark. A month later, Sheriff Daniel Harlow resigned without explanation. His official report on the Thompson case was never filed. Instead, he left a personal letter addressed to the State Bureau of Investigation, sealed in an envelope marked, "Confidential, do not open." When the Bureau finally reviewed the file years later, they found that the envelope contained only a single page, completely blackened, as if it had been burned from the inside. After his resignation, Harlow moved away from Silver Creek, settling in a remote cabin near the Oregon border. In 1982, a hiker discovered that cabin, empty, the furniture covered in dust, except for one thing. On the kitchen table sat an old working tape recorder, still spinning, still recording. The tape was labeled, in Harlow's handwriting, "Thompson, case number 002. It never ended." In 1983, nearly 7 years after Sheriff Harlow's disappearance, a box arrived at the Silver Creek post office with no return address. The clerk who received it described the handwriting on the label as oddly shaky, like written by someone who hadn't held a pen in years. The box was addressed simply to Silver Creek Sheriff's Department, attention, evidence. Inside were 5 audio tapes, each labeled with dates ranging from 1974 to 1982. All had the same initials on them, M.T., Mary Thompson. When the surviving deputy, now Captain Doyle, listened to the first tape, his face went pale. It began with the same whisper from the first night, "Please, not again." But this time, the voice continued. The recording captured what sounded like footsteps pacing, a door creaking, and then a male voice saying, "You shouldn't have come back here." The final sound on the tape was a long, drawn-out scream, and then silence. 2 hours later, Doyle called his superior in Salem and ordered the tapes sent to the state forensic lab. But before the courier could leave, the power in the sheriff's office cut out completely, plunging the building into total darkness. When the lights came back, the box of tapes was gone. A week later, a drifter showed up in town. A man in his 50s, wearing an old army coat and carrying nothing but a worn-out backpack. He introduced himself as Elias Grant, a former sound engineer looking for work. Locals said he spent most of his time in the old diner on Main Street, sketching diagrams of cassette reels on napkins. One evening, the waitress overheard him muttering to himself, "It wasn't supposed to record them, it was supposed to contain them." Curious, she asked what he meant. He looked up, eyes wide, and said, "Once you play their voices, they know you're listening, and they come back." Later that night, Elias vanished from the diner without paying his bill. When the sheriff's men searched his booth, they found a small metal device, like a homemade recorder, and a note that said, "I built the first one in 1974. Mary wasn't the only test. While searching Elias's abandoned motel room, Captain Doyle discovered something strange hidden beneath a loose floorboard. A hand-drawn map of Silver Creek, marked with red ink. Several points on the map were circled, all leading toward the northern woods. At the very center, drawn in bold, was a symbol resembling an old tape reel, and beneath it, one word: Gateway. When Doyle followed the coordinates, he reached a clearing deep in the forest. There, half buried in moss and soil, was an old metal hatch, the kind used in Cold War bunkers. The hinges were rusted shut, but a faint humming sound could be heard from within, identical to the one captured on Mary's tapes. He contacted the Bureau for backup, but by the time they arrived the next morning, the hatch was gone. Not covered or buried, but completely vanished, leaving only a square imprint in the earth. Weeks later, local radio station, WCRK 108.7 FM, reported an unexplained signal interference. Every night at exactly 3:15 a.m., the broadcast would cut off, replaced by a low static tone and a faint woman's voice repeating a single phrase: "I'm still here." The signal came from deep within the forest, the same coordinates marked Gateway on Elias's map. When the station engineer tried to trace it, his system crashed and the backup generators shorted out. He told reporters that before it happened, the waveform on his monitor formed a face. Listeners began calling the station, claiming they could hear whispers even after the broadcast returned to normal. Some said they heard their own names being spoken softly through the static. After 2 weeks, WCRK stopped transmitting between 3 and 4 a.m. altogether. The owner said, "It's better to leave that hour empty." In 1986, a former deputy from Silver Creek, Frank Calder, resurfaced in a psychiatric hospital in Portland. He'd been missing for over a decade. When doctors asked where he'd been, he replied, "I never left. The town just forgot I was still there." Calder spoke obsessively about the voices in the static and the house that moves when no one's watching. He claimed that what happened in Silver Creek wasn't murder or madness. It was a containment breach. According to him, the Red House was never a house at all, but a machine built to store human echoes, fragments of consciousness left behind after death. When asked who built it, Calder laughed and whispered, "Elias didn't build it. He just opened it again." 3 weeks later, Calder was found dead in his cell. Cause of death unknown. But the security cameras recorded something no one could explain. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the video feed turned to static for 42 seconds. And in that static, a woman's voice could be faintly heard saying, "It never ended." As the years passed, the legend of the Caldwell murders only grew darker. New homeowners refused to move into the house where the family once lived, claiming they could still hear faint whispers at night, a child's laughter, a woman's sobbing, and the rhythmic creak of the old rocking chair that had been found at the crime scene. The local sheriff, who had worked on the original case, confessed before his death that he always felt someone was watching whenever he drove past that property. He never truly believed the official story, that a robbery had gone wrong. Deep down, he knew the killer was still out there, and that they might not have been entirely human. A journalist named Rebecca Hayes reopened the case in 1979 after discovering old police tapes in an abandoned station archive. The recordings captured eerie static and muffled voices, including what sounded like a confession, but in a tone no human throat could produce. Rebecca became obsessed, visiting the crime scene at night and interviewing locals who still feared to speak openly. One old man told her, "The Caldwells didn't die because of greed or anger. They died because something ancient wanted them gone." Her articles stirred national attention, but within weeks, Rebecca vanished. Her car was found near the same forest where the bodies had been discovered, the keys still in the ignition. When police searched for Rebecca, they uncovered strange carvings on the trees, symbols that matched those found on the basement walls of the Caldwell house decades earlier. Linguists who analyzed them concluded that they belonged to an ancient ritual language, possibly linked to early occult practices brought from Eastern Europe in the 1800s. Locals began whispering that the Caldwells had unknowingly awakened a curse tied to the land itself. The sheriff's replacement ordered the forest to be sealed off, but even today, Hikers report seeing flickering lanterns deep among the trees and hearing someone call their name softly from nowhere. By the mid-1980s, the case had become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring documentaries, horror films, and conspiracy theories. Some claim the murders were part of a government experiment gone wrong. Others believe the house was built on a site of ancient burial rituals. A group of paranormal investigators entered the ruins with cameras and recording devices, hoping to capture proof of the supernatural. What they found was never released to the public, but one surviving member later confessed that they saw the family standing exactly as they had died, eyes open, watching them. Today, the Caldwell property remains off-limits, fenced and overgrown. Only a few brave souls dare approach it, often leaving terrified and silent. The story continues to echo through generations, a chilling reminder of how darkness can dwell in ordinary places. Whether it was human madness, a forgotten ritual, or something beyond comprehension, one truth remains certain. Once you learn the story of the Caldwells, you never truly forget it. And sometimes, on quiet nights, locals swear the lights in that ruined house still flicker, as if the past refuses to die. 50 years later, the Caldwell house still stands, silent, rotting, and untouched. Locals say you can still hear the tape playing at night, the same voice whispering, "Please, not again." If you made it this far, hit that subscribe button and join us next week for another true story, darker than this one.